It was very difficult for me, even being in the containers. I was like, I don't want to listen to this. And the first thing that I thought of when I got out of the feeding container was, children go through this. You know, I've signed up for this mission. I'm a full-grown adult. That wasn't the first time a man has put his hands on me. And so, you know, there's some familiarity, there's some maturity in the fact that I know that these people are sick in the head, and it's not a reflection on who I am as an individual, why they're violent and abusive. I can't say I would say the same thing or believe that if I was 13 years old or 14 years old. You know, I would do a lot of self-blame there. You know, there's so many other smaller situations in life that made me want to cut myself as a kid. And I can't imagine what Palestinian children go through having to experience that. And that was such a small, very fast experience. You know, this over the course of 3 days, and children have this for months, years.
You hear about the administrative detention of children, administrative detention, like a really like fucking like corporate word to describe a tortured, you know, dungeon for kids, how they break their arms and sexual assaults. And like you said, they're probably thinking, well, I must have done something wrong to deserve this shit.
Well, and then they beat it into their heads too. Like they abuse them to the point where these children have reactive mutism. There's the Save the Children reports. There's the unchilding reports. There's so many of them that have statistics on how many children experience gunshot wounds and broken bones, and when they get home that they can't sleep at night. How many children wet the bed at night afterwards, are become aggressive afterwards. You know, the aggression portion is a huge thing. You take a beautiful, young, happy child and you put them through that experience, that's going to change them. And then when they grow up and they don't have parents or any sense of security, and all they know is fuck, I can't even describe it. And then you call him a terrorist. It's so incredible. It's so incredible to see the amount of bravery that people were exuding in those situations for the sake of their comrades, for the safety of their comrades, so people didn't die in there. You know, watching people in Palestine and Lebanon and listening to their stories and learning their history, it was like, I get it. You know, like I get it. Like it's for survival mode. I mean, not that I've ever walked in their shoes, or not that I even have like a fraction of a glimpse of what they've been through, but fuck, the tiny, tiny bit that I have, it is an honor to even look at those footsteps. Because I know what it would take to do all the things that people in Palestine and Lebanon have done and been through, and still be resilient and to still have hope. I have families in Gaza that, you know, I talk to this day that they're like, we don't want to evacuate. And I'm like, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Like, I don't know if I would be that brave. I would like to say that I would, but I don't know if I would. Sometimes I would ask for advice, or I would have a bad day, and they, you know, these people in these situations would write me a verse from the Quran and try to uplift my day. And I'm not living through a genocide.
That's the thing about people, Palestinians, the people in Gaza. When you talk to them, even in the midst of the hell, they care about you.
Yes.
It's like, you're asking me how I'm doing? How I feel? What the fuck you mean? Like I'm in the United States. I'm eating junk food. That's my oppression right now. As you know, and then you're like what? It's just crazy that they think outside of themselves to the person they're talking to, despite their suffering. You know, it's
just the level of bravery and just the ability to kind of put your ego away and to feel that human connection. I think a lot of us, I think that's probably the best way to describe the collectiveness and the care for each other, was that that ego was no longer there. My name is Mea. My full legal name is Mea Marie Dominguez. I was part of the Spring Flotilla coming from Turkey in Mea Marie, going to Gaza. On May 18th, the morning that the interception started and my boat had gotten away, we saw them early in the morning. There was a warship, and then I saw a couple of our comrades behind us. I don't know how we got away. We just started sailing. We did notice that our internet was jammed, so we had no communications for several hours afterwards, and I thought for sure that we were going to get intercepted at that time. Also, our SOS was jammed, which is channel 16, so we cannot call any Coast Guard or any emergency services at that time when they jam that SOS. Around 1 p.m., we got our Wi-Fi back on. And so I decided to check the status of our other boats. There were several that were taken. News media was reaching out to me that day, so I did a couple interviews, was trying to update friends and family and the public, posting content. Around 4 p.m., the Global Sumud Flotilla made an announcement. They said that the Israeli government, that their plan was to take European ships first before taking Turkish ships. They considered the ships that were coming from Turkey to be highly aggressive, and they said that they were not going to provide any medical attention, which was quite alarming to me, signified that I knew that they were going to be excessively violent with us. On board my boat, there were several nationalities outside of the Turkish nationality. We had an Italian member of parliament with us. We also had a French journalist. It was a very diverse group of people. As we were sailing, we saw a couple of boats that were abandoned. We attempted to get close to them, but the ocean was very rocky. We didn't have a dinghy, so we couldn't go to the other boats. If we had gotten too close, they would have hit each other. That night, we did notice that there were several drones. One specifically, it was a very small drone, and I noticed that the light had a very gentle flashing red light, and it moved kind of slowly as if you were watching a plane, which I don't know if it was a strategic method to kind of blend in with the other airplanes so that it wouldn't be noticeable, but that's what it was. There would be a couple of times where it would stop, and it just was not moving, and it would slightly move in a different direction, and that's when I noticed, like, oh, that's definitely not a plane. It would circle around our boat, and what I suspect was that they used drones and they placed on all of our boats so that no matter where we went, that we would have a pin in our location. I'm a San Diego resident. The Islamic Center of San Diego also had a shooting and 3 people were murdered. That Islamic Center is very dear to my heart, and the news had spread so fast that other people on my boat were actually approaching me and notifying me and asking me questions. It was very difficult at that time for me to try to research and look up information about what was happening. That Islamic Center was the first mosque that I've ever been to. Prior to me fasting every Ramadan, that mosque had fed me. My neighbors at that time, one of them actually worked at the Islamic Center, and so I called them that night and just to make sure everybody was alive and safe, and luckily none of the family members had been there that day. And I lived right next to the Islamic Center. I remember the grandmother, she would say, you don't cook all Ramadan. No, I bring you food. And I would have plates just filled in my fridge. I would have to tell her no, like, I'm sorry, there's just no room in my fridge. I remember when they would have celebrations, that family invited me to that mosque, and I remember telling them, like, I'm not Muslim though, and they were like, you don't have to be, just come, bring your kid. And I was like, what? You don't have to be to go? And so my son has been there to play with other kids. I'm very close to some people who went to that Islamic Center. This is the first time I ever prayed inside of a mosque, was at that Islamic Center. That entire process really cut me very deeply, and I wish I could have been home to be present and to give my regards. I just put up a sign because that was all that I could do. Also running for my life at the time. So there was a lot of chaos that was happening on the boat that I was trying to maintain calm and be aware of my surroundings and try to keep tabs on everything that was going on. I stayed up all night doing drone watch because I couldn't sleep for obvious reasons. And that night there was a lot of a lot of deep thought that happened as I was looking at the stars, as I was looking at the ocean, trying to understand why we are on this flotilla. How come it got to this point? Why is there so much violence that people need to step in rather than our world leaders and our international institutions? There's no acceptable answer that I could ever think of. Following day, around 6 o'clock in the morning, we saw a warship off in the distance, but the warship was heading in a different direction. I was so tired and stressed out at that point. I went downstairs, I slept for maybe about 4 hours, so roughly around 11 a.m. I came back up and I tried to check my phone. I was sitting down, I was right behind the captain's station, and I could hear the static from the channel 16, so they were starting to run interference. I'm not exactly sure if it was around that time or like a couple hours later. We had called the Egyptian Coast Guard to come help us, and we had no response. They completely ignored us. We hadn't heard anything about any interceptions up until that point. The morning, even though we saw the warship, it was still pretty quiet. So I went out to the deck of the boat to do some interviews and try to make some content and just check on our comrades to see what was happening. The Global Sumud was constantly giving us information and updates. Where we next? Everybody's safety. What is the risk assessment right now? What is the plan between the captains and the navigation? What do we need to do? Is everybody feeling okay? Does anybody need to eat? Does anybody need water? Is anybody feeling sick? Because when the warships come and the speedboats start coming, you don't have that much time from when that process starts. And around 3 o'clock, I had finished an interview and I was getting ready to send it, and I didn't have Wi-Fi. And so I tried to log back in, and it said the Wi-Fi password changed. I go back inside the ship, and everybody had said the Wi-Fi password changed. So they had hacked our Wi-Fi. Within maybe about 15 minutes, that's when we saw the warship that was behind us. And then we noticed that there were 2 tiny black speedboats that were coming at us. So we knew, okay, this is time. We all got our jackets on. I held up some signs because there's 2 networks that are actually on the ship. There was the one for everybody on the boat to use, and then the one for the cameras. You're watching the lives and stuff on YouTube and on the Global Sumud webpage. The Wi-Fi connection was still there. So I just took the chance and I made some signs that said, they changed our Wi-Fi password. There's 2 speedboats coming. There's a warship behind us. They had jammed our SOS signal, the channel 16 again. And they were playing just, I don't know, some ridiculous, stupid music that we had to listen to while we're all panicking. I knew that it was over when our captain finally turned off the ship, and we were kind of just sitting, and when the ship is off, then it starts to get more unstable. So we all sat down, and as the speedboats were coming up from behind us, they yell at us to get to the front of the boat. So that's what we did. On the speedboat, it was fairly large, and there was stairs, so that way they could get into those larger boats as well. I want to say there was about 10 officers on there. And they all had giant guns, and they were screaming at us, "Who's your captain? Who's the captain?" You know, we did our best to try not to respond to anything. And then they started firing rubber bullets at us. They were breaking windows in the boat. They were threatening if we didn't say who the captain was, that they were going to escalate. And I didn't know what that meant after firing rubber bullets. I assumed that they were going to start firing live rounds. We eventually had somebody who volunteered to go kind of get control of the ship because it was really rocking back and forth. Eventually, the officers came on board, all with their weapons pointed. Me and another woman who were on the ship were separated closer to the front of the boat while all of the men were, we were all in the same deck, but they just kind of had us off to the side. They all had cameras on there, and they were talking very calmly. That was not normal. They were unusually calm and nice in that situation. And then I saw the body cams, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is the footage that they want to release to the public. Then they started to get a little bit spicy with some of my male comrades. They had pulled a couple of them away, specifically our Arab comrades, and they made our men undress.
Where is this taking place?
This was on the front of the boat.
The front of the boat. They made them while the ship was rocking back and forth.
While the ship was rocking back and forth. So one person who knew how to drive the boat volunteered to go and kind of stabilize it. So it was still rocking, but not as much. And during that time, that's when they got onto the boat and they made us put all of our stuff down. They made us pull our passports out, like take our jackets off. So that's where they were trying to check to make sure that we didn't have any weapons. We didn't have anything in our pockets. They wanted us to open all of our bags, which we didn't really have much bags on us, just like a little sling or something or a fanny pack. But they targeted 2 of the men that were on the boat, and then they pulled them to the side of the boat, and then they made them take off their clothes.
What else did they do once they did strip down? What did they have them do?
They put your clothes back on. Go sit down.
And, sorry, backing up. When did y'all ditch your electronics?
Oh, yes. We didn't have service because they changed the password, so it didn't matter. So we couldn't film them, we couldn't go live, we couldn't do anything. So at that point, we were like, "Fuck it," and we just tossed them. Like
that was before you saw they got.
As soon when the speedboats were this small, that's when
they tossed it.
Because it didn't matter. Yeah, we didn't have access to Wi-Fi. I didn't know if the cameras were working, so it wasn't even. There was nothing to try to hold on to. There wasn't anything to try to document. We couldn't.
Yeah. Does everybody do it at once? Or is it like staggered, like one person then the next person? Or is this...
It wasn't like a line. It was just like, get rid of them when you can.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But everybody agrees at that moment that that's... Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
When the captain says toss them, you toss them. So at this point, they've patted us down, went through all of our stuff, had been relatively calm outside of shooting rubber bullets at us and stripping 2 of our comrades down. Then they started getting us into the speedboat. And our ship was pretty tall, so we had to go down. We had to jump over the rails, go down the stairs, and then sit in the seats that they have there. So I was sitting at the bottom of the stairs, and one of the men that they had stripped down, one of my comrades, he was sitting at the top of the stairs, and a soldier was right next to him. And I remember the soldier took his rifle and was shoving it into my comrade's side, and I could see the wincing on my comrade's face. So I was just really triggered and angry when I saw that. I was like, hey, like, why do you have a gun pointed at him? He's complying with your orders. That's so unnecessary. And then the guy just moved his gun out of the way and didn't say anything after that.
Who said that to the soldier?
I said that to the soldier. I started yelling.
Of course you did.
I know.
Of course you did.
But you know, and that could have been a bad thing. I could have made the situation worse, knowing that. But
no. Like that's you though. Like it's just you.
I was trying to pay attention to the patches that were on these officers. The officers, a lot of them had like a rectangular patch, and they would have single branches on them. Many of them had 3 branches kind of just lined up like a fence right next to each other. And there was room for more as well. So it wasn't like it filled up the entire thing. There was also initials on some of their attire. There would be initials either on the side or on the front. I remember there was an R.H and a Y.S. The other one that I noticed that I thought was really odd because it didn't look like an Israeli patch. It was a random rectangular patch with a rooster on it, and it said attack chicken, and it was brightly colored. It had like a black background with orange and red colors on there. So it was a fully colored patch, something that you would probably get on eBay or Etsy or something. I didn't see any other officers with that patch. And I know that those patches, anything that is not official military uniform, that it's technically not allowed, but I mean, it's Israel.
Yeah, it's probably just some internal fraternity type of like unit stuff. They're weird. They're just strange in the head. Okay.
Yeah, some type of like torture gang or something like that.
Yeah.
So when we got onto the speedboat, I remember looking back, and there were still 1 or 2 of my comrades that were on the boat, and then the captain that was at the wheel making sure that the boat was stable. And I remember thinking, fuck, I didn't do a head count when we got into the speedboat. I don't know if they had separated our people and they're going to beat the shit out of my comrades in the boat. I got really afraid, and I started to have a lot of regrets, and that's when my heart started to sink. I don't want them to kill my comrades. The speedboat went from our ship to a Navy ship. This is before the prison boat. So the Navy warship, when we got onto it, it had that very spiky non-skid floor. That's where things escalated. They started yelling at us and telling us to shut up. That's when the interrogation started, and that's when we were first zip tied. We were zip tied, and I remember they brought out these blindfolds, and the blindfolds were white, and they had like a light brown stripe on them. And I feel like I've seen that pattern in images that I've seen out of occupied Palestine. I feel like they always use that same pattern for blindfolds. I don't know why. So we were blindfolded and zip tied. They were trying to ask us questions, and I knew just not to respond.
Were they doing it one by one or as a group? Like
one by one. They wouldn't ask us they wouldn't ask us as a group a question. The only time they did that was when they asked, like, where's your captain?
Right.
That was the only time, really. From there, I'm zip tied, and somebody grabs me and walks me over, and he's telling me, like, okay, step over this, walk over that. I don't exactly know, like, where on the deck I was. All I know is that then they forced me on my knees on the non-skid floor, and then there was a bar that was attached to the floor, and they zip tied me to the bar on the floor. Prior to that, they had also been asking us if we want any water, and I refused. I didn't want any water. I didn't want anything from them. I wouldn't have any conversation about anything with them. When I was zip tied to the bar on the floor, I could hear everybody one by one also kind of getting zip tied down right next to me. They came around and they asked all of us, and I could hear them, each individual person, and there was multiple people who were asking, are your zip ties too tight? And I told them yes. And then they asked me, do you want them loosened? And I didn't respond. There was a couple of people after that I heard, yes, their zip ties were too tight, and they asked if they could have them loosened. And when I saw the zip ties, like the wrist on the people who I know asked to have them loosened, they were so much tighter than what I had. They were extremely tight.
So they tightened them after they asked that.
I don't know if they had tightened them at that time, but they had tightened them initially extremely tight.
But nobody got them loosened. So it was kind of like
just to torture them.
Taunting that they did. Yeah,
they're like, are they too tight?
Yeah.
Do you want us to loosen them?
Yeah.
And then nothing.
Yeah.
I later find out, because we were blindfolded, I heard multiple of the men on my ship kind of yelling, and it was kind of that, just like that groan, that he also had his ankles tied at that time as well. And so everybody is holding a stress position on our knees, on our elbows, head down on this spiky non-skid floor with zip ties that are too tight, and some of the men have their ankles tied, and they're taunting us, yes. Then they're asking us if we want more water. The woman who was with me gave a response. She was like, I don't want any Zionist water. The Israeli officers, it was like a pack of hyenas for them. Like, they got excited when they finally got a reaction from somebody. And then there's multiple voices that I'm hearing afterwards, asking her questions, taunting her more. And at that point, that's when I feel like water splashed at me. I think they started, because of her response.
Collective punishment.
Yes. And then they're tossing water at me. And then randomly, as I'm zip tied on the floor, I feel somebody coming around and stepping on my fingers. And that happened a couple of times. And I remember just pulling my fingers in. I didn't yell, surprisingly. That was around sundown. They took off our zip ties so that way we could climb down into the speedboats. It did take 2 speedboats to get our entire crew off. In the first speedboat, there were 2 rows that were in the back. Again, there were the stairs to come down, and then we had to go around like this. I don't know what this device was. It was like a device that they have in the middle You probably have seen it. It's got like a big metal thing, and I think it moves. I think it's like a jammer, like a Wi-Fi jammer or something. But there was this giant thing that was in the middle of the speedboat that we had to go around to get to the two seats, the two rows of seats in the back. Those seats were all full, and there was 2 extra people that were packed on. So I didn't have a seat. So I kind of sat on the side and I held on. And then my captain came down, and he was kind of an elderly man, and he didn't have a seat either. So I'm holding on to the side of my captain like this, and I'm holding on to the rail. The soldiers then start yelling at me to put my hands up and to get my hands off of him. And I was like, he doesn't have a seat. There's nothing holding on to him. No, I'm not letting go of him. They gave up, and they just let me be as I'm holding on. He's holding on to the rail, and then we get to the speedboat starts moving, and then we get to the prison ship. As we're pulling up to the prison ship is much taller. I want to say we were on the left side of the ship. We get up and we walk to the right, and we're sitting in a stress position on the floor. And this is when I heard the very aggressive screaming, the shut up and da 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 da. And this is when there was very aggressive women on the boats. On the Navy warship, the women were not as pushy. I feel like once they got to the prison ship, that's when their fun had started. I got up, that's when the undressing happened. They moved me to another section, and there was a big hallway that was right there. As they were undressing me, I wore 3 layers. I wore a windbreaker jacket. I wore a long sleeve shirt, and then I had an undershirt underneath it. They took everything off of me except for my undershirt, which I should have asked for my long sleeve shirt.
No, this is on the warship. This is on the prison ship. Is this in the interior, or is this like on the exterior?
It's on the outside. So there's the containers, and then the courtyard where we were all located at. This is on the outside. There was also a tall railing that the officers can walk around, and they can watch into the courtyard and shoot rubber bullets at us, and all the different ways that they want to torture us. So the area that they had created for us was actually smaller compared to the rest of the ship. So this was what they were working on. So they had created these walkways for us and tables set up where they would take our passports, and they would ask us questions, and they would strip us down, and there were boxes for them to throw all of our things. They took my rings. They let me keep my glasses at that time. I eventually did lose my glasses, but I still had them at that point. The lady also said, she forced me to take my shoes off, and the whole deck was wet, like with that much water on it. She didn't even want to look at my shoes, nothing. She just wanted me to take my shoes off and wet my feet and have me in an undershirt and jeans. So that way I would be cold. And then when I went to go put my shoes back on, she yelled at me. She said, "No, give me your shoes." I was like, "Fuck, you want my shoes for?" So then I tried handing it to her, and I tossed them at her. And then she let me put my shoes on again. So it's literally just to get me wet and then to be cold overnight. And they had asked me about my medical history on the Navy ship, on the Navy warship. And I said, I do not feel comfortable talking about my medical history without the presence of a lawyer and without me speaking to my consulate first. On the Navy warship, they tried to be very nice at that point. They're like, "That's okay." But then I heard comments later on from that guy to his other officers. He was like, "Don't ask her about her medical history, though." Just very, they took everything extremely personally,
Did it strike you, all this, did it strike you as a really bizarre behavior? Like, I mean, you've dealt with cops, you've dealt with ICE, you've dealt with all kinds of assholes here in the United States, but this is...
I'll never understand that sadistic enjoyment. I've never seen people who enjoyed pain and were so angry as these people were. Never. It's stuff that I hear about on the news, or, when you read about it from court documents or something like that from crimes that happen, but this is an entire society, and everybody is on board with how much they hate an entire population of people and how cruel they are. And there's no level that is too cruel for them. It is laughs, it is giggles, you know, up the ante. How much worse can you be? Yes, you know,
I mean, we wonder how Nazi society got to the way it was. How could a whole country like Germany turn like that? It's like, this is what it looks like in real life. It's like there's no voice of reason amongst the crowds. It's not like a guy standing there or a girl who's like, wait, hold on, don't like back off. It's like no, like all this is normal to us. This is how we are.
And it's so embedded in their society. And these are things that, you know, we see this in various cults, you know. I've heard about this happen in Jehovah's Witness and other types of religious societies, Scientology. These people are grown up with these ideologies, and they are blackmailed and abused. And so there's a lot of fear to think outside of the box. And when I was there, I could feel there's that level of protection that they have, that they can do whatever they want because they are physically isolated from everybody else. So if things get bad, they run back to home base. And so I feel like that was kind of their saving grace. They go back to the community, to the place where what they believe in and their violence is accepted, and they feed off of each other, and they get that positive reinforcement from that violent behavior, rather than going to other societies where, you know, many of us, we've dealt with segregation and racism, and we've created communities that are no longer like apartheid states and stuff like that, and they're not there yet. So, and I could just see how cruel it was.
It's almost like a different strain of evolution, right? Like, that's how I see it. It's like American society, it goes in a certain direction. Things that were normalized in the past are now horrific, you know, and then different societies evolve in certain ways. But it's like Israeli society just evolved in this weird strain of sadistic evolution where it becomes more and more like progress equals how sadistic can you be, and who you can impress the most, like who can be the most impressive with their sadism.
Right.
You know?
And I was speaking to somebody who actually lives there, and they had pointed out something to me. They said anybody who doesn't agree with the Israeli military or all of the violence, most of those people have fled. And so you're left with all of these super sadistic, violent Israelis who are feeding off of each other, and that's all that they have left. And if they don't have any other enemies, they're going to turn on each other.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
That's going to be
a lot of them had asked me, or they would make comments about me being a United States citizen. They were kind of surprised, like, oh, what, you're from the US? Why are you here? Like, did you not see, like, our country have all this encampments?
Do you not know that 80% of the country hates you right now?
Yeah, you know, like, we've been through this. Like, do you not know our history?
Yeah.
Like, we already dealt with segregation. Like, I know how this ends for you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
When I get to the prison ship, after I'm stripped down, after she makes me get my feet wet to put my shoes back on in these cold containers with no jacket. So they would take our arms and twist them behind our backs, and then have another hand right on the back of our necks and push us down and make us walk with our heads down like that. Just super tippy-tappy. That's how you're walking. Short steps, crouch down. And if you weren't low enough, they would shove you lower.
Yeah.
If you didn't walk fast enough, you would feel that pressure, like push up on the back of your head to go faster. And they were running, you know, that wasn't a normal walk for them. They were rushing because they just wanted to make it more uncomfortable for us.
Yeah.
So I was shoved down and shoved in front of these computers, and a woman was asking me about my medical history, and I said, I do not consent to giving you any of my medical history until I talk to my consular and until I speak to a lawyer. And she was like, oh yeah? And then she looks over and she calls somebody, and I feel a large hand on the back of my neck, grab me, squeeze me, and throw me down. And they were like, you're going to answer this question about your medical history. And I was like, I don't have any medical history to tell you. I wasn't going to tell them shit. And then they were trying to kind of be like, oh, well, you know, we need to know if you need to see a doctor. I was like, my response was, I don't need to see a doctor unless you hurt me. And I look up and the woman is staring at me. She goes, we're not going to hurt you. Then they turn around and that's where the first container is. And so there is 2 containers, and that was on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, there was 2 containers, and the bathrooms are to the back area over there. And again, there's big walkways that are lined up all over the top. The first container, they threw me in and they shut the door.
This is a shipping container type of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, like a standard shipping container. Oh.
Shipping container, if you, like, when the door slams, it echoes, you can hear it, it's really loud.
Nothing in there? No furniture, no items?
I don't think so.
Right.
I don't think so.
But you didn't know it was dark anyways, right? So
it's dark, yeah. But there were like little lights and stuff that I could see. But after that first hit, it was bright, and then it went very dark. And I don't know how many hits I took.
Wait. Back up. So they threw you in the container, the door shut.
There was a man in front of me, and what I thought was they were going to grab me and move me again. I had no idea what was coming.
So one guy, you and him, alone in the container.
3 guys.
3 guys.
So there was 2 in the back. And the 2 in the back, I hazily remember them having long black items. And they all had full, like, what is the face mask thing called? The balaclava, what is it called?
Oh yeah. I forgot what it's called. Yeah.
So they had the full masks on, all black. The guy had metal knuckles on as well. So he had this.
He had brass knuckles.
I don't know if they were brass knuckles or if it was
gloves with the
gloves. Yeah.
With the knuckle. Yeah.
Yep. It was gloves with the knuckle thing. So it wasn't like the brass with the metal.
Yeah, it's covered. Yeah.
It was a leather piece, but you could tell because the knuckles were raised, and you could feel it when he was hitting you as well.
Your hands are what describe?
I'm standing.
So no zip ties on.
No zip ties at this time. But it was. At this point, they were so aggressive. It was just like, I'm complying. Like, because if you didn't comply, if you did anything, it would just make it very worse. So I was just trying to get from A to B. Just, let's just get there.
So you were in the container, guy standing in front of you, and then.
Bam. Yeah.
Where on your face?
It first came on my left-hand side, and then it was on my left-hand side a few more times. And then right-hand side, and that's when I started to really pass out. It would go bright, dark.
Did you hit the ground once he hit that?
No, I stayed up the whole time. I think I was falling down, and that's when he grabbed my hair and he held me up, and he kept hitting me at that point. And I'm very hazy about this, but I know he had yelled something before he tossed me behind him. I think he had yelled, "Don't come back here again," or something like that. But at that point, like, my ears are ringing really loud, so I can't hear very well. I can't see very well. And like, he knocked the day of the week out of me. Like, I wasn't sure exactly. Like, I started to forget, like, where I was. Is my feet on the ground? Like, am I wearing clothes? Like, there was a lot of that very basic consciousness that you have of your body that I didn't have for a bit, for a few minutes after that. So he tossed me behind him, and I remember kind of stumbling. I don't know how long, like, I was standing. I don't know. I couldn't tell you time-wise. Like, there was no sense of time there. But the 2 men behind him, I don't remember seeing them after that. I just recognized them when I first had gotten in there. The door had opened, they tossed me out, and that's when I was in the main courtyard. In the main courtyard, there was a group of people that were standing on the other side of the shipping containers, and it was like a welcoming committee. And there was one of the hijabi ladies who I was very, very close to. She was, we bonded in Turkey. We hung out together, we went and we had lunch, and she was amazing. We did like a lot of media training together. We went to the legal symposium together, and she was the first person who came up to greet me, and she took me out to the side of the containers, because you didn't want to be in the middle of the courtyard, because the soldiers were standing up on the top there with guns with rubber bullets just to shoot at people. So you wanted to stay closer to the edge of the containers, like out of being just a target, essentially.
That's crazy. Well, I think we got past the part of the story that that I struggle with the most. So thanks for walking me through that with that. Like, because that to me was like the part that I'm like, okay, we're gonna get to the part where they're hitting her, and I'm not gonna make it through this part of the interview.
You know what? And honestly, I don't think I had it as bad, because they are sadistic. Mm-hmm. They want to see people struggle. They want to see people cry. I didn't cry out. I was just unconscious, essentially. And I think they got bored with me and they gave up.
Yeah.
And so had they done something else, I almost don't want to say this because I don't want them to be like, that's a great idea, you know? But like, had they punched me in the side or somewhere else where I could be reactive, I would have put my hands up. And then I think it would have made it longer and it would have been more enjoyable for them.
Yeah.
But I was essentially non-responsive and they got no pleasure from that.
And that is a thing amongst, psychopathic killers and serial killers. They do it for the reaction. They want to savor all the emotions of torturing somebody, and when they don't get that, they get bored. It truly is a sickness. And
and it wasn't me like being brave or holding on or anything. It was just like he made the hit way too hard the first time around, and he took his fun away. Because I'm pretty sure, like I would have cowered. When people got tased, they screamed involuntarily. But I gave them nothing because I had.
Thank God.
I had no mental capacity at that point.
Yeah.
And so when they threw me out of the container and somebody, my friend, she came and she grabbed me very gently. And that was the thing that I noticed. Like they were very gentle with your body afterwards. What I come to find out is that people were stripped down in those containers and they were using like the loaves of bread and wetting them to put on like everybody's wounds, because we had open wounds there, we had fractures, we had eye injuries. It was really, really bad. So everybody knew, like, be very gentle, like make sure, like, because their body's in shock, they may not feel it right now. Are they limping? Is there any head injuries? I had a cognitive exam. We had multiple doctors on my prison ship, and they had created a medical container. So from the beating container, there was the back container, that was the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, the back container was the medical container. That was the one where you could be in there to sleep, but the whole right-hand side of that container was just injuries. And we prioritized using plastic bags to make arm slings out of it, if we needed to wrap wounds, if they needed to sit still. Water was distributed there first. And it was quiet in that container. So the people who wanted to like chit chat and stuff like that, go to the other containers. Let's let these people sleep. So that had already been established by the time I had gotten there on the day 2 of interception. And there were several doctors that were kind of like lining you up. Let's see how you're doing. Tell me what happened. People would document, and then also people would fill us in. They would come to the containers. Okay, we have these many broken bones. We have this many sexual assaults. Everybody was informed. And if you had questions, they were open. They would tell you, like, I don't know this, but that's a good question. Like, we'll find out. Like, just so everybody would be on the same page, just so everybody knew what was going on. Nobody was in the dark about anything. And
this is just all the Sumud activists just creating a mesh network of information with each other.
We had nothing left. There was no language. There was no religion. There was nothing that made us different from each other.
Yeah.
We all just felt each other's pain and wanted to make sure that everybody was okay.
And they organized, even in that
so quickly.
Desperate situation of being on an Israeli prison ship. They just made a system. That's fucking insane.
Yeah, there was a system right away as soon as I got there. And when they heard the people screaming in the beating container, you had the welcoming party. You had the people, the care party there, who would go and would grab them, take them out from the dangerous middle section. Do you need medical care? Do you need water? Do you need anything? And then they would kind of, you could go wherever you wanted, but if you needed something, like there were several men in the prison ship, when they saw that the girls were cold, they took their shirts off and they would give them to the girls because we were freezing cold.
Did everybody go into the beating containers?
Yes.
So it was just one by one?
Yeah, it was a walkway. That was the container that you walk through. Like if it's a long rectangle, you walk through the back of it and then they open the side door and that's when you're in the courtyard. So you can't get into that courtyard area without getting through that container.
So so it's just like this Holocaust style process. Everybody goes to a container, gets a beating, and then it's part of their processing.
Yes, and then we told stories between each other. I heard various things. Like I was by myself. Sometimes they would put couples in there, male and female. The people that were on my ship, the female, and then one of our male comrades. And I loved my boat so much. I'll get into it later, but. Like when the boys would get into a scuffle, just how they yell on the ship, the men would come up there like, we're so sorry about that. And I'm like, I don't care. Like you guys figure out whatever you're doing. Yeah. You guys are fine within 10 minutes. Like I'm not like scared or like nervous. They're just having their little
thing. Yeah.
But it was very respectful. It was very like, oh, I don't want to scare the women. I don't know, like, do you guys need anything? Like when I would start cleaning and stuff, a couple of the men came up, they were like, make him do that.
Yeah.
And so it was very like brother, sisterly, or even like granddaughter, grandfather kind of like vibes. Yeah. And so when the female that was on my ship and one of the men, who was just so loving, they went into that container together. She said they targeted her first and they made him stand there and watch her get tased, beat up. She was on the floor, like screaming her ass off. She has like taser marks on her belly. And then she later said inside the prison ship in the courtyard, he came up to her and he apologized to her later. He said, I'm sorry, I didn't do anything. Like I know it would make it worse. So, and that was like one of the ways that they tortured, the people there, because they know that we cared about each other.
It's mentally breaking you down and showing you like you're helpless. We're going to torture your friend and there's nothing you can do about it. And then you hear about all the stories that happen at Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza. More horrific than that, obviously. It all comes to life,
And that's what they want to do. And specifically doing it in that container where it echoes, any sound of the banging metal will echo. Yeah. It terrorizes everybody else. Yeah. And the soldiers were on the top of the deck, just kind of watching everybody's reaction, just watching everybody flee, like, scurry to one side. And they enjoyed it. And they had cameras on us. They either had body cameras or we could see that they had their phones out or handheld cameras. But we were being filmed the entire time. And I'm not sure if there was a camera inside the beating container.
Probably infrared.
Yeah, 99% sure. Like there's like snuff films of, or trying to be snuff films of that out there. 100%. So the containers would get so full that we were just like, if you've ever seen like the videos of, migrants as they're moving and they're kind of piled like these bodies on top of each other. That was us. Like there's literally, we're trying to find like spaces in between like legs and feet and bodies and trying to find a space in between each other. And nobody cared. Nobody cared who was there, if you were half naked. At that point, it was so cold. Half of the people were wet, were injured. And, we were concerned about hypothermia. Mm-hmm. So it was...
How does your body heat?
Yeah. It was who can lay next to each other like closely. I remember when I picked a spot I laid down. There was two ladies that were next to me, and the one who was directly next to me, she was like, you know, like, come here. And so she was kind of keeping me warm, and I was absolutely freezing. I ended up using, so you know the like big 24 packs of the bottles of water, that plastic that's on the outside, I made a blanket out of that. So that was my blanket, was a plastic piece. And surprisingly, that actually insulated some heat. I found another blue plastic bag, which was a little thinner, kind of like the bags that you would get like at a liquor store or something like that. That actually insulated heat a little bit more. So plastic bags kept us warm. We were, oh gosh, this was an incredible memory that I had. So the sister of the president of Ireland went on this mission, and she was one of the doctors who was kind of caring for everybody there.
That's awesome.
And she was so...
What's her name?
Margaret.
Margaret. I think Shout out to Margaret.
Yeah, she was... Let me tell you how brave this woman was.
She's Irish, of course she is.
Incredible. But I mean, you could see, like, she sounded afraid. She looked afraid, but fucking hell, I was so impressed. She literally walked out to the middle of the courtyard when it was dark, and she's shouting at the soldiers. She was like, I am a doctor. We need water. We need fresh water. We have injuries. And I'm sitting there at the edge of the container, and I'm like, Margaret, no. Margaret, don't do it. So I'm afraid for her, and I feel like a giant chicken shit because I'm not there next to her. Multiple, but also like I'm slightly like, you know, coming from concussion signs, like I still don't know up from down, like my vision is still very blurry at this time. But I'm like, oh, they're gonna kill her. And there she is, just like shouting at these officers, like regardless of how shitty, you know, and how scared she may have been in that moment. And other people were getting out of containers and were standing right next to her and standing in front of her. And it was just such an incredible thing to watch.
Awesome.
And I was like, God, I wish I was a bit more conscious. And I felt awful for not getting up, and I didn't.
No, don't feel awful. Plus,
but they were there the day before, so they had kind of like.
And she's Irish.
And she's Irish.
Okay, don't try to hold yourself to the standard of being an Irish woman.
This is true. It's true. Margaret. Yeah, I won't even compare. That was some shit though. And then I talked to her afterwards too, and I'm like, it's so incredible. It's so incredible to see the amount of bravery that people were exuding in those situations for the sake of their comrades, for the safety of their comrades, so people didn't die in there. You know, watching people in Palestine and Lebanon and listening to their stories and learning their history, it was like, I get it. You know, like I get it. Like it's for survival mode. I mean, not that I've ever walked in their shoes, or not that I even have like a fraction of a glimpse of what they've been through, but fuck, the tiny, tiny bit that I have, it is an honor to even look at those footsteps. Yeah. Because I know what it would take to do all the things that people in Palestine and Lebanon have done and been through, and still be resilient and to still have hope. I have families in Gaza that, you know, I talk to this day that they're like, we don't want to evacuate. And I'm like, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Like, I don't know if I would be that brave. I would like to say that I would, but I don't know if I would. Sometimes I would ask for advice, or I would have a bad day, and they, you know, these people in these situations would write me a verse from the Quran and try to uplift my day. And I'm not living through a genocide.
That's the thing about people, Palestinians, the people in Gaza. When you talk to them, even in the midst of the hell, they care about you.
Yes.
It's like, you're asking me how I'm doing, how I feel. What the fuck you mean? Like I'm in the United States. I'm eating junk food. That's my oppression right now. As you know, and then you're like what? It's just crazy that they think outside of themselves to the person they're talking to, despite their suffering. You know, it's
Just the level of bravery and just the ability to kind of put your ego away and to feel that human connection. I think a lot of us, I think that's probably the best way to describe the collectiveness and the care for each other, was that that ego was no longer there. It was no longer, I am a man, a woman, I am of this religion. There was no identity politics within that, within those containers for us to have a hierarchy. I mean, I think the only hierarchy was Margaret was the queen of the castle that day. Margaret was Mama Bear.
And not because she was related to the president of Ireland.
But goddamn, she takes. If there's anybody who like deserves to have authority within a country and stuff like that, it's people like that. And we need leaders like that, with families like that. That people who really give a shit.
Yeah.
There was me trying to get through the night as I'm cold and wet, and I've kind of walked around the different containers, said hi to people. I went to the container across from me and I was inside and I could hear people screaming from the beating container. And I really want to give respect to the people, the welcoming committee that were outside to greet people and to take them and to give them a hug and to give them safety. Because just listening, having to listen to somebody else be tortured and just wait and hold space for them, that was a lot. That was a lot. None of us had the option of listening to it, but there was people who had the option of standing in front to listen to it and to be there for them, to care for them, because that was another level of strength that I had no idea even existed. You know, can I sit there and watch somebody be tortured? And wait for them, you know, that was hard. It was very difficult for me, even being in the containers. I was like, I don't want to listen to this. And the first thing that I thought of when I got out of the beating container was, children go through this. You know, I've signed up for this mission. I'm a full-grown adult. That wasn't the first time a man has put his hands on me. And so, you know, there's some familiarity, there's some maturity in the fact that I know that these people are sick in the head, and it's not a reflection on who I am as an individual, why they're violent and abusive. I can't say I would say the same thing or believe that if I was 13 years old or 14 years old. You know, I would do a lot of self-blame there. You know, there's so many other smaller situations in life that made me want to cut myself as a kid. And I can't imagine what Palestinian children go through having to experience that. And that was such a small, very fast experience. You know, this over the course of 3 days, and children have this for months, years.
You hear about the administrative detention of children, administrative detention, like a really like fucking like corporate word to describe a torture, you know, dungeon for kids, how they break their arms and sexual assaults. And like you said, they're probably thinking, well, I must have done something wrong to deserve this shit.
Well, and then they beat it into their heads too. Like they abuse them to the point where these children have reactive mutism. There's the Save the Children reports. There's the unchilding reports. There's so many of them that have statistics on how many children experience gunshot wounds and broken bones, and when they get home that they can't sleep at night. How many children wet the bed at night afterwards, are become aggressive afterwards. You know, the aggression portion is a huge thing. You take a beautiful, young, happy child and you put them through that experience, that's going to change them. And then when they grow up and they don't have parents or any sense of security, and all they know is fuck, I can't even describe it. And then you call him a terrorist.
Yeah. And that's by design. It's like the Israelis are trying to instill, besides the genocide of killing, there's the mental genocide. You instill the trauma so that it carries on for generations.
The night Margaret, she made her spiel, and then they started shouting at us. They started screaming, and what they would do is they would bang on those metal doors. So we knew everybody's on high alert, like, fuck, what's happening? And they huddled us all out like cattle up against the back of the boat, or the courtyard, like right in front of the porta potties that they had right there. And I swear it was like 15, 20 of them, all in big SWAT gear, all had like shields, as if like we had any weapons at that point. Like, what were we going to do? Throw the loaves of bread and the empty bottles of water at them? And then randomly one person just would throw a sound bomb at us. And so they would throw flashbangs in the middle of our group. So you could see like all of us together, and then there was just like a little opening, and then there it was. And poof. And they did that a few times, and they did that just for shits and giggles, and then they ran back in. And then there was the waters, and they brought us out some clothes, you know, a few jackets and stuff. But what they did was they soaked the jackets and the long sleeve shirts in water. So they offered us wet clothes. There was a gentleman who I had interviewed, and he was a survivor from the Mavi Marvara, that flotilla where 10 people had died. And he was like a grandfather figure to me. Yeah. He was on the first boat that I was on. That boat broke down, and then he got moved to another boat. And so when we were in the prison ship, I forgot exactly when it was. It must have been after the Flashbangs. I'm not sure. But I looked into the container, and then there he was sitting in the opening, and I just remember being so relieved, because he was one of the Turkish men. I knew that they were specifically being targeted. So I ran up to him, you know, gave him a giant hug. He had an eye patch on. I guess they had grabbed him by the face, and so you could see the redness, and like his eye was not okay. And then afterwards, I kind of sat down with him, and I kind of just like had my arm like in his arm, and I just kind of like laid just like that. Just like daughter, father, grandpa figure. Such a gentle soul. And then hearing the reports that were coming from the United States and Israel that were trying to demonize the Turkish delegation as if they were terrorists and this and that. And this man was just described Palestinian children and their suffering, and he didn't want them to hurt anymore. And by the end of the interview, he said something to me, and everybody was crying. There's multiple men on that ship during the interview, and then my female translator, who was also a doctor. She was on my first boat as well. Everybody was in tears, because what he was saying just came from the heart. You know, it wasn't about wanting to hurt anybody, but wanting to feed people. And then he looks at me afterwards, and he goes, "Hey, I need to apologize to you." I was like, "Me? Why?" And he said, "I used to think that all Americans were bad people, but now I know that you guys have been lied to. You know, there's propaganda, and I've seen the encampments. I've seen that you guys are trying, and you're learning about us, and you're here, you know, caring for people of Gaza." And he's just like, I'm sorry. And he didn't need to apologize to me after everything that our country has done.
Yeah.
There were a few times that I ran into people in Turkey where they obviously expressed their anger with the United States, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm with you." And that was it. It was not like they were not upset with me. I made that establishment like, yeah, fuck what we did after 9/11. Absolutely. We should have never been to Iraq. We should have never been to Afghanistan. Yeah. We should never be supporting Israel's war. We should never be bombing Iran. Like, all of this is absolute fucking craziness. And as an American citizen, me separating myself from these policies is the simple thing that people from Israel, or if they're in the Jewish community, can easily do. Like, Zionism does not.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's such a.
Because they're saying, like, oh, if you criticize Israel, then you hate all Jewish people. And it's like, well, no, because I criticize the United States, and other people criticize the United States, and I can have a perfectly fine conversation with these people. You know, they might still hate all Americans, but they'll have a decent conversation with
Yeah.
me, because we do have these agreements. We are on the same page about these things. I didn't feel like anybody wanted to kill me or hurt me. I actually felt extremely safe in that country, especially when we talked about politics, you know? And it, like, I wanted to also give them some relief. Like, there's so many of us that don't agree with this.
Yeah.
Like, we're fucking trapped in this too.
You need to like copy and paste the cohesion amongst your Sumud comrades all over, you know, and that's why I'm saying this is why people need to hear all these details and all of this from you, because maybe it'll help us reflect on ourselves a little bit. Like, maybe we need to get our shit together here. Like, this activism, it's a joke. It's a fucking joke that we're doing here. Like, if we can get to that level.
There's really not any preparation or anything that you can do to be able to stand up in front of an officer who has a gun pointed at you, and to be brave enough to say, hey, like, my comrade is going to die. I need these supplies. And I don't know how to explain that type of selflessness that it requires, that all of us, and every single one of us, didn't know the level of depravity that we were going into, but we all knew, you know, this is just a small portion of what the Palestinians go through. And am I willing to take a taste of that in order to really care for these people, to walk in their footsteps, to be able to figure out a successful pathway to really bring food and humanitarian aid to them, you know?
I try to talk you out of it. I mean, I was trying to...
Oh, yes.
I was, you told me you were going, and I'm like, man, don't do that. Come on, don't do that. Like, please. Like, I knew that they were going to be bad this time around, the Israelis. Like, they were going to turn up the heat because they have a sense of impunity now. The mask is off internationally. There's no hiding their crimes. They know that we know about everything. Like, the world knows. And I know that, well, now they have no reason to hold back, like, their sadism. So that's why I was like, I was like, just like, you're so valuable here in San Diego doing what you do and fighting ICE and all this sort of shit. Like, you don't have to do this. And then and I was like low key hoping that you would not get accepted. I'm not gonna lie. And then you're like, I got accepted. I'm like, fuck. You knew what you signed up for.
Not really. Not really.
Well,
kind of.
But like you made a conscious decision, and I am not one to try and.
I'm so glad that it came out in this manner that it did.
Me too.
Because it also kind of gave me a sense of relief. Like, I would get so much anxiety also talking to my families from Gaza, because just that sinking feeling of fuck, like, there's nothing that I can do. Now it's re-energized like some ideas that I have. Which is why it's so important that you had these trailblazers on social media that normalized us calling Israel out. One of the influencers that really had an effect on me that made me feel confident was Janine Matari, right? Janine Matari, she's part Palestinian. Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yes. Yeah. Yes. She's friends with Alana Hadid, right? Yes, she's, and I considered... She's the author, right? Like, didn't she have, she has her book tour or something canceled? She's I think she does, a lot of... She's an award-winning author. But what I loved about her, before I knew anything about her, was she's a reverse gaslighter. She ungaslights you, and with her videos. And she comes off as just an average mother, and she's just like, fuck Israel. And don't talk shit about the resistance. And when I saw her videos, because I was being attacked by Zionists for speaking out, and when I saw her videos, I'm like, fuck yeah. Yeah, I'm not weird. I'm not fucking, I'm not nothing off about me. Yeah, fuck Israel. So it just takes those moments where you see that one video on social media that gives you the confidence, like, I'm not fucking crazy. Something relatable. Fuck Israel. Glory to the resistance. Like, you feel that confidence because somebody did it. And Janine was that for me, where I was like, right out the gate, I'm like, you know what? Fuck this shit. I'm not gonna mince my words. I'm just gonna be hardcore. As hardcore as I can get. That's right. Yeah. And I was very alone when I first started this, because I was doing videos by myself. By myself. I didn't know anybody in this. I used to go to protests to like try to make friends, but Nobody knew me. And so now I know why when you're the new person showing up trying to make friends, you look fucking weird and nobody wants to be friends with you. So
that's why I go with you to protest, because I don't want to be the weird one. Like I always,
yeah. Now everybody knows me, so it's fine. But at first I was like, fuck, like nobody even wants me here. Like I get it now. Yes, because Zionists are crazy and there's a lot of infiltrators. I respect. It's fine.
That's a good point though. We gotta be cognizant of the fact that there are new people coming in. They might appear awkward. They're not infiltrators. They just want to do something. They need a starting point, which is so important.
No, I'm still gonna vet them. I'm still gonna give
No, you still vet them, but it's like always like we need those people who are willing to give handshakes to the people who want to join and don't know what to do. They don't know the first thing about activism.
Yes. And I also want to make people feel comfortable. Like, it's okay if you don't know.
Yeah.
It's okay. We have all the information. Where do you want to start?
Exactly.
What things are you interested in? Are you interested in the environment? Are you interested in children? Are you interested in like education, archaeology? Like there's a whole section of archaeological, like a website of archaeological sites that have been destroyed by the Zionists. Terrorist state of Israel.
Veterinarian, you know.
The animals, yes. So, I mean...
Miriam did a great job. Yeah.
The doctor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mar. She's like, she opened a world to me about the veterinarian side of the genocide, you know, the angle of it's crazy.
So if you don't take care of that portion of it, then that's when zoonotic diseases spread. We're talking about Giardia, we're talking about worms, rabies.
Yep.
Like there's been a few rabies outbreaks in occupied Palestine.
Yeah.
Like that's a scary thing. Rabies has been not seen for a while. I think the last one that I heard about in the United States was a bat in New York. So that's dangerous. So, things like that. And we can start in places where people are interested, where it's relatable for them. And there's so much information. It was a lot for me to catch up on when I first started this. And now I'm on flotillas and getting my ass kicked by the Israeli military. And I'm honored to be here to do these things because I know it's the right thing to do, regardless if there's a gun pointed at my head or if I'm worried about freezing to death. Like, I know it's the right thing to do. I know that I'm not on like a death mission, just FYI.
I know.
Yeah. But
I know. But you're not doing that shit again. You're not going on another flotilla.
Hey, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, okay?
Oh, what? Oh, great. Now I'm going to be like...
Hold on. We need to crop this part out. Hold on. We'll fight about this later.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay. Why do we need to crop it out? Let's just let the audience know that, like...
I would do it again.
Yeah.
I would do it again.